Good morning, class. I thought I'd give a brief little video about the ProctorU final exam that's going to be coming up here really toward the end of the month, beginning of May, which will be really about the time everything's going to sort of wrap up for all classes. If this is the first time that you've taken a online course of any type for Coastal Pines, just realize that your instructor for that particular class, if they haven't already, they're going to send you out some information about ProctorU. It's any online course that you take, whether it's English, math, psychology, world religion, it doesn't matter. If you're taking an online course from us, you're going to have to do something, some kind of exam or some kind of test that deals with ProctorU if you're taking a strict 100% online course. If you're doing a in-person course or a hybrid course, you'd have to see what your instructor is going to do there for the final exam. But for online courses, you have to do the 60-minute ProctorU session. Now, some instructors do that early in the semester. They may do it for the midterm. Most instructors may, like I am, having to wait until the final exam period to sort of do that. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about if this isn't your first time using ProctorU, then your username and password and everything should still work. You just want to make sure that all that stuff's up to date so you can still log in and stuff. If this is your first time and you have to go through the deal of creating your free account username and all that stuff, I will show you where you can find that information and how to go about doing it. If you check your email, probably about the 10th of March, I did send out 3 pieces of information that talks about ProctorU. That same information, I sort of made a folder for it in your Blackboard page, so you can see sort of the same information if you deleted that email or didn't get it. You should be getting, if you haven't already, at some point today, an invitation to go ahead and sort of schedule your final exam. So check your Coastal Pines email account for that. You don't necessarily need to schedule one, but for some, it might be a reminder that, hey, you got a final exam coming up, especially if you got multiple exams and multiple things having to deal with ProctorU. So let me share this screen, and I hope everybody had a peaceful spring break. Let's see if I can move some of this stuff around here. Hope everybody was able to get a little bit of rest and relaxation. I know it's kind of hard to do with the last few weeks here, and everybody's got tests and papers and all that stuff going on. So I'm going to share you this screen, and it's basically going to be our Blackboard page. And if you look, everything's sort of laid out. As it gets closer to really, you could call it week 17. It's not really a full week. It's like 16 weeks and a half. But anyway, as it gets closer to week 17, you will have basically the only thing that's going to be there will be the ProctorU final exam, the Dropbox for it. The deal is, if you click here, and if you look at ProctorU final exam information, I give you everything, basically the first 3 things I sent in email. And again, I sent that on the 10th of March. It talks about the one-page flyer. There's a slideshow, PowerPoint, and there's some student tips and frequent asked questions about PowerPoint. Your actual exam topic, basically what this is going to be is it's going to be a 60-minute timed essay. So what's going to happen is you cannot have a rough draft. You can't have anything really pre-written essay-wise. You have to do the essay from scratch. You have to type it from scratch. What you can bring is you can have an outline, which I strongly recommend that you have an outline to your essay. You can put notes like what you want to talk about, examples, illustrations, that type of stuff on note cards if you want to bring that. Obviously, you can use the e-text if you think the e-text would work for you. You can use, it's a source dictionary, but of course, if you're using Microsoft Word, which you should, you already have, the spell check, the grammar check, dictionary, and all that stuff built in for you. So you really don't need to bring anything except maybe have an outline and your note cards. Anything else is really forbidden to use. Again, you're going to have 60 minutes. You're probably going to need at least, 40 of those minutes to actually type your essay from scratch. A lot of times, as I say here, link 250 to 500 words. So a good 1 to 2 pages is pretty much all you're going to want to need with 60 minutes. So if you take 40 minutes to type it based on your outline and your note cards, that will give you, the additional 20 minutes to proofread, edit, spell check, grammar check, save, and submit. Because once the 1 hour time limit runs out, that's it. This is only sort of like a one and done deal. So once you click begin, your 60 minutes is starting to tick away. Make sure that you save often. Make sure you type this using Microsoft Word because you have the benefit of the spell and the grammar check right there. Because you can't use smart thinking, you can't send me a draft. This is just on you for those 60 minutes. And as I say here, you can go through a lot of this. This is going to be changed a little bit. It's basically, I need it by Tuesday. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of make that change now just because grades are going in on the 5th. And I got 3 or 4 other classes that I'm going to have to have everything graded by then. So give me a minute here. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up pretty much at midnight the day that the research paper is due. So you're technically going to have from Thursday, the 28th, through Tuesday, the 3rd of May. So that's why I'm making that little change here, just because it'll give me enough time to get all the grades in for everybody else by the 5th, because we have staff development that everybody's going to have to attend in Waycross. And it's just going to be, with research papers and essays from other classes and all that other stuff, it's just going to be difficult to get all of this graded if waited to the last minute. So making those changes here to reflect that. But if you look, I've already gave everybody the topics. The topics have sort of been up here for a while now. I don't know if y'all have actually looked and peeked at these, but it's basically a self-reflection. and I will bring these over. I'm not going to go over all of these because I know you can read, you can see what's going on here. Um, but you're going to pick one of these topics. You're still using Microsoft Word. You're still using the MLA9 format, Times New Roman 12, double space, right? I'm only looking to 1 to 2 pages, 250 to 500 words. So you pick one of these topics and you write about that based on a reflection. Um, Again, you probably want to use an outline. You want to use your note cards to help you get through the first 40 minutes, because the first 40 minutes is probably where you're going to do a good bit of your typing. Another way you can kind of approach this essay is think of it as a 5 paragraph essay. Sometimes a 5 paragraph essay works really well when you're dealing with timed essays. So just make sure um, that you're going about it that way, because usually 5 paragraphs will give you the 1 to 2 page length and the word requirement. All right, so you can start preparing for this really at any point. I know y'all got your last set of the annotated bibs due by 11:59 on the 11th of April. Um, you do have a final quiz coming up this coming Sunday, the 17th. I realize that's Easter. Again, if you don't want to have a lot to do moving into the weekend because you're traveling or you're going to church or having Easter with the family, you can always email me your answers to that quiz before Sunday, so you're not having to worry about that on top of everything else. The other thing is, I want to sort of keep in mind for everybody is this is what you really should start to kind of follow as it relates to your research paper, because after today, after you turn in your annotated bib, your book sources, basically sources 5 and 6, you really need to start drafting your research paper if you haven't already. I would say, because this paper basically needs to be 6 to 7 pages, 6 full pages, with your 7th page being your works cited page. Your works cited page obviously is going to be, the 6 sources that you picked out, you talked about in your annotated bibs, because you want to use quotations, you want to, paraphrase or summarize using the proper MLA documentation as it relates to parenthetical and in-text. Again, that's basically what your last quiz is talking about, is some of that stuff. And again, there is handouts about how to integrate, how to quote properly, how to paraphrase, how to do MLA parenthetical citation throughout the body of your research paper. So the whole point of doing the annotated bibs the last 3 weeks or so was for you to actually go out and get your 6 sources that you plan on using throughout your research paper. So make sure, because keyword research, make sure that you're quoting properly, make sure that you're paraphrasing correctly and summarizing correctly throughout your research paper. So getting back to what you should be doing, basically starting on April 12th. So from the 12th until the 18th of April, which is basically 1 week, it's about, roughly, 6 or 7 days from now. You should have, if you haven't already, the first 4 pages of your research paper should be done. You should already start including and integrating those quotations, the paraphrasing, the summary, right? Doing all the documentation that you need from, using your 2 web sources, 2 journal articles, and 2 book sources. By Sunday the 24th, which is basically 2 weeks from now, you should have your complete research paper, 6+ pages with the works cited page done. Because at that point, you can start sending me drafts and smart thinking drafts, if you haven't already, before midnight on Wednesday the 27th, because the final draft, the one that I'm really going to be grading, is going to be due the following day, the 28th of April by 11:59. There's a Dropbox for the final draft. Please email me rough drafts. If you haven't emailed me rough drafts of any of the other essays, and if you haven't used smart thinking at any point, this would probably be the paper that you would want to do that, because nobody wants to get flagged for plagiarism. That'll be a 0 right off the bat. And with this paper being nearly 40% of your grade, that will drop you about 40 points or 4 letter grades. So this is something, collectively with the proposal annotated bib and this particular paper, you really don't need to foul up at this point, because as you can tell, today is the 11th. We're done on the 3rd, May 3rd. So if you look, 12th being a Tuesday, 1, 2, 3, we only have 3.5 weeks left. That's all we got. So nobody can really afford a 0 of any kind. Nobody can really afford to plagiarize anything in any kind, because again, like I said, the first offense is a 0. You do it more than once, then you're going to fail the course. And then we have to go through a panel, the powers to be, the president, the vice president. They sit down and they really determine your fate, whether you need to stay at this college or whether they're going to suspend you or just bar you for good. So if you're questioning if you're quoting something properly or not, you need to send drafts, you need to ask questions, you need to send stuff to Smart Thinking, you need to send stuff to me before the 27th. Because again, I got a lot of research papers coming in from a few other English classes on the 28th. And I'm really, if you wait until the 28th to start sending me drafts, I'm probably not going to have time to give you credible or at least constructive feedback, just because there's so much stuff coming in. And I'm going to go ahead and, start grading some of these earlier final drafts that come in, on that day or a little bit earlier, just because, like I said, the following Thursday from the 28th, all grades from everybody at the college are going to be due. So I'm going to be in grading mode really starting on the 28th of April. So if you want me or you want Smart Thinking to look at something, you need to send it before the 27th. Earlier the better, obviously. But if you click on your short term here, you can tell there's some videos about annotated bibs. Integrating quotations part 1 and part 2, you want to look at that. It's going to help you not only with the research paper, but it's going to help you with your final quiz. We have the Dropbox for set 3 tonight. Here's the Dropbox for your research paper. I basically just moved these over because what I was going to show you is going back, and again, I'll probably move this out as it gets closer to the final exam period, meaning I will move everything final exam related into the week 17 folder starting on the 28th. So if you go back, and if you click here, it's going to give you all of this. If you hit begin, this is going to prompt up. So if it asks for a password on your end, you did something wrong. The password is already built into the exam. Once you log into your ProctorU account, it will bypass, basically it will already enter the password for you and take you to where you need to go to complete, your timed essay. What I suggest that you do before you get started is have your Microsoft Word up and ready to go. Because you won't want to be fooling around going back between 2 different screens or multiple screens, because the ProctorU, you're going to have somebody on the other end that's going to be watching your every move. And if they think that you're up to going to different websites or trying to copy and paste from another document, if they suspect cheating or plagiarism of any kind, they're going to flag it and they're just going to shut that exam down. And because you're being recorded, I'm going to be able to watch. I'm going to be able to see what's going on, just like they will as well. Depending on when you take it, I may pop myself in to see how things are going. You won't know that I'm there, but I will see. I will be able to see you take it. Generally, I usually don't necessarily watch people take because it's just basically you're sitting there typing the exam. But if something does get flagged, I do go back and watch that just to make sure that we have everything. If you're really cheating on something or copying and pasting, or you have a rough draft when you're not supposed to, that's how we are determine whether that person needs to get a zero or not. So as it relates for me, just signing in and watching people type. Obviously, it's a solo thing. I don't have to do that. If you have your note cards in your outline, you know how to use Microsoft Word and the type. So I'm not going to sit there and watch, because there's 20 people in this class. I'm not going to sit there for an hour times 20 other people, right? So if something does come up and they send me an email or a phone call and they send me the video and say, hey, look at this, then I may log in and check stuff out a little bit more, live version type deal. But again, you won't have to worry about that because you're not going to be able to hear me. I'll just be able to see you. But again, I got other classes going on at that time, so I probably won't do that unless it's just a need to basis. So if you do not have the ProctorU, you're going to have to get it, obviously, because you're not going to be able to go anywhere without it. So how do you go about doing that? Well, again, you can go back to those handouts I have here, and I'm just going to pull up the one that I sent, because it's basically the same information. I sent this email again out a little after 2 o'clock on the 10th. So that would probably be about week 8, week 9, about midterm week. And if you look at this first one where it says ProctorU one-page flyer, and you click on that, you want to read through all this, especially if this is your first time using ProctorU. Make sure that you have a photo ID. It says government issue photo ID, a driver's license will work, your college ID will work. It has to have your sort of like your name first and last in a picture, because that's the whole point of you having a webcam that's working. Because they're going to take a picture, they're going to look at you obviously through the 60 minutes, but at the start, you're going to have to go through all this verifying the person on the ID is the person actually taking the test, and vice versa. So if you don't have some sort of identification, you probably need to get it, because otherwise that's going to sort of stop you right there. The other thing is what I would suggest, because you can take this from the comfort from your own home. Clearly, once you get on and have your web mic turned on and your web camera turned on, somebody on the other end is watching and listening. What I would be wary of is if you live in a location where the internet is sort of shoddy, meaning it works really good at 9 o'clock and then not so good from 10 to 12, and then it starts to work a little bit better at 1 o'clock. If it's off, up and down, if you don't have a really good or stable signal, it could knock you off. And if it knocks you off, then because it's a one chance test, you're done. You don't have nothing saved, so it's gonna grade it as a 0 because you didn't turn anything in and you didn't save anything. So if you're living in a location where the internet's not the greatest, or you don't have a working webcam or a working mic, or they're both not the greatest, what I would suggest is that you go to your closest Coastal Pines Technical College testing site, which is they usually do them in, around the library. We do have testing centers at particular campuses. What I would suggest that you do, if you know that your equipment's not going to be the best or your internet's not going to be up to par, is to visit one of those testing centers and take your exam there, because you can use their webcam, you can use their mic, you can use basically the computer and the equipment. The only thing is that you want to be careful that if you're doing If you're going to the closest Coastal Pines testing center, that you make sure you give yourself enough time to obviously get there, take the test, and enough time to get back to whatever you need to do, because uh, there may be a waiting period depending on how many people are showing up to take it at a particular testing site or the library. So if you have to work, I would probably give let your job know, maybe weeks in advance. Hey, maybe you just need to take this day off. Um, so it'll give you enough time without feeling all stressed and stuff, especially if you have to wait to get a computer or whatever. Keep in mind, most testing centers are only open Monday through Thursday, usually from about 8 in the morning to about 6 o'clock at night. Again, depending on which site you're going to, you probably want to check the webpage or call ahead of time just to make sure somebody is going to be there and what their hours are. Most of them have about an hour lunch break. Usually, I think it's around 12 to 1, but again, you might want to double check that. So you're not showing up and they're at lunch, and you tell your boss that you're going to be back at 4, but these people are at lunch and they may not come back until 1, and that gives you an hour to do the thing, 2 o'clock, and then depending on where you have to travel back to, you may or may not have enough time to get back to where you need to be. So what I'm getting at is you want to plan accordingly if you're planning on using a testing center or a testing site. Now, if you plan on doing this at home, pretty much on the 28th when it opens, you can pretty much take it at 1 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to take it at 1 o'clock in the morning. You have until everybody has from the 28th at midnight of April until May 3rd, which is Tuesday, by 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., it's going to shut down, meaning nobody's going to be able to get on there to do anything. What I would suggest is I probably wouldn't wait to 5:55 to start this thing on a Tuesday. I would probably start it, if you're thinking about the 6 p.m. deadline on a Tuesday, I would at least start it by 5 p.m. on that Tuesday. Clearly, you could take it earlier than that. That might be wise. Just because you're coming right off from writing the research paper, you're probably going to be a little sluggish and tired of writing, but you may be also fresh because you just wrote that research paper to go ahead and maybe on a Friday or Saturday, especially if you can take this from your home, to go ahead and try to knock this thing out, because you don't have to worry about a necessarily long break period where your thoughts are not necessarily always the best, especially if you've been writing for so long. Maybe you're in the groove and you can go ahead and get started with cranking out basically 1 to 2 more pages. It's really shouldn't be that big of a deal. The big deal is make sure that you have the ProctorU stuff. And if you click here, this is going to take you to the page to where you're going to have to download that browser extension. Now, if you look up here, I don't know if you can kind of tell, but there's a little owl, right? You need to have that little owl sort of as an add-on, as sort of an attachment up here. And you want to make sure that you're downloading the correct browser extension. If you're using Google Chrome, then you want to click here. This will take you to the Google Chrome extension, right? The web store. Pretty much on apps, that type deal, you pretty much know what you have to do here. Read through this and download it. If you're not using Google Chrome, if you're using Firefox, as the thing says, you can click here as well. You can go ahead and click here to get Firefox. The deal is you don't want to mix and match, meaning if you're using Firefox, you don't want to get the Chrome extension. If you're using Chrome, you don't want to get the Firefox extension because it won't work for you. You want to get the correct browser extension for the browser that you are going to be using, and usually it's the one that you primarily do use. So if you're more of a Chrome user, I would get the one for Chrome. If you're more of a Firefox user, I'd get the one for Firefox. Just don't mix and match because it won't work too well for you. doing that. So once you go through that, it's going to work through. It's going to tell you what you need to do as far as creating a, the username and the password and all that stuff. So going back to some of this stuff again. Right, we had the slideshow, we had the frequent asked questions. If you have issues, because once you get on and once you start taking, start typing your exam, you do have a ProctorU Auto, which is a live test taker, live chat through the browser extension or your account. You want to get in touch with them, or you want to get in touch with the contact page. There's usually a phone number or something there, because if there's an issue on the ProctorU page, you're going to have to get in contact with the ProctorU support, because I don't have any control over what's going on their page. The only thing I did was supply the exam. The exam is working. I check it pretty much on a regular basis, so I know there's no issue with the exam on my end and Blackboard's end. So if you're having some issues, it's either going to be on your end as it relates to your computer equipment, right? That's why it says here you probably want to test your equipment for the high-speed internet. You want to make sure that you're downloading the right extension for the right browser. You just want to make sure that any updates that your computer needs to do, that it does that before you actually take this exam, because you don't want to be in an exam and all of a sudden your computer goes through an update. And you know how those updates do. They go through, they can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours, and it sort of locks your computer and then shuts down and then reboots itself. If it does all that, then you basically just lost your exam, because, again, you probably didn't have any chance to save it, and you only really have one chance to get in there to take it. So make sure before you actually sign up to take this stuff that you go ahead and have all your updates done. That includes any Microsoft Word updates, because you don't want to be in Microsoft Word and then the darn thing start freezing up on you because it's talking about it needs to update something. So just, like I said, if you realize that you don't have the best equipment in the world as it relates to a working webcam, web mic, if your computer is not the best, you might want to sort of schedule a time to come to the college to take the test between the 28th and the 3rd. Now, granted, there's some disadvantages with that, because if you're one that likes to work at night and you want to take this thing, let's say 10 or 11 o'clock in the evening or at night from your own home, but you realize that your computer is not going to be all that great, obviously the testing center is not going to be open at 10 or 11 o'clock at night on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday. So you're going to have to, rearrange your schedule around if you have to get to a campus to take this thing. And most campuses are closed now on Fridays. So, Thursday of that week would be the last possible day. Of course, really, it won't open until midnight, so that's not going to do anybody any good if you needed to come Thursday. But you do have Monday the 2nd and Tuesday the 3rd, you could take it if you have to go to a campus. Otherwise, you're clearly able to take it from home as long as you sign up and get all this stuff that you need to create. I would definitely look at these slideshows and the student tips and frequent asked questions. Again, you can find this stuff in that ProctorU folder that's in your Blackboard. So once you get yourself created the account, what you're going to have to do to be able to make this thing work is you're going to have to sign in to your ProctorU and your Blackboard at the same time. Because if you don't have both of them signed in at the same time, you're never going to be able to take this exam. Now this is acting up. So that's real good. Let's see. Well, it says my account's locked out, so I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with this. Because it was working here earlier. But you're gonna have to have both of them logged in at the same time to be able to take the test. So just make sure that you have both of them logged in, so you can take that exam. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to complete it. All right, so that's pretty much ProctorU in a nutshell. I'm gonna see what's going on with my account because I had to restart that password earlier, so I don't know what the deal is. But if you have any questions, please email me and let me know. Otherwise, get ready to start sending me and Smart Thinking drafts, and I will start giving y'all feedback back on those as quickly as I get drafts to read and to provide feedback. Um, let me know if you have any questions on anything, and I will see you soon. Have a good day.